The main objective of any equestrian should be the safety and soundness of their horse. Bearing so much weight on the hooves, a horse must be provided with optimum care and comfort. In breeds with high-impact gaits, comfort at footfall is essential. Turf cord, originated in Germany and now available in the United States, provides shock-absorbing shoes to protect horses' joints and overall hoof health. Perfiles with Purpose met with Naila to learn all about turf cord and how it can be of great value to our Paso horse. Naila, welcome to Perfiles with Purpose. This is our second episode of our brand new podcast, a nourishing podcast for the committed horseman. And I ran into your product a few days after telling my daughter they should have Crocs for horses. And then I see you, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a Croc for horses. So I believe in synchronisms in the universe, and I'm just so excited to have taken this step to go into the summit and then meet so many fascinating people. You are what we would call a farrier.
Yeah, you could say that, yes.
Okay.
Horse trimmer. Well, in Germany, you have to be educated to do the farrier work. So in Germany, I'm not a farrier yet. I'm just a horse trimmer, a barefoot trimmer, but we are allowed to glue shoes on. So I know that here you don't have need to have an education, but yeah, I call myself farrier because I also know how to nail on the shoes. I'm not so used to it because I haven't been done it for a long time now, but the horse trimming and the turf cord, that's my expertise, you could say.
Okay, so we'll get into that, but let me ask you this. Did you grow up with horses? Were you born into a horse family?
Yes, you could say really born into, because still when my mother was pregnant with me, I think in her 7th month or something, she was still riding our draft horse.
Wow.
And so we always had horses around. My father works as a farrier now till 35 years. My mother is a veterinarian, specialized on horses. She does the acupuncture and everything, not just like only the
tradition, but alternative.
Yeah, just everything. She's amazing on that stuff. So for me, it was normal to have horses around, and I grew up on horses, you could say.
Wow, that's amazing.
Got my first pony when I was 3 years old. And I was the one who decided which one I would pick.
Oh, you chose your pony. Wow.
I chose my pony. And I was really picky.
Really?
Yes, we went to many different places. But then he came, he just turned around the corner and I saw him and said, that's my pony. And he was called Little Prince. Oh. And he was just the cutest, perfect little pony.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you're so confident. I just got through watching you, and showing horses isn't always easy, right? It doesn't always go as planned. And I went a couple of times and I was at a distance. You were under a horse that was way taller than me at the troop.
And taller than me. I'm not tall also.
Right, we're about the same size, but she was about twice the size of my stallion. So I'm thinking, wow.
Germany, she's still young. She's just got spirit and still young, and but she's a fine mare actually.
I'm sure.
So, but I didn't get scared because when I'm at the horse, I can feel what's going on. So if I really trust that feel, I don't get in a position where I'm getting hurt. So I know right now there. It wasn't that bad as it maybe looked like. I don't know how it looked like, but for me, it felt like, well, she was jumping I don't know. I remember she jumped 3 times. We moved, I think, 2 meters or something.
Yes.
And I was still holding her foot, but yes.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. She didn't just move over 3 meters. You had her hand between your knees. You were bent over. You had things in your hand. You didn't phase.
I just moved with her,
and then stopped. Then you went like this on her belly. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a beautiful thing to watch. So I knew you had to have so much experience with horses. And you just told me that you were riding before you were born.
Yes. Yeah.
I always tell everybody about my daughter. I didn't ride when I was pregnant, but everybody came around to see that when the trainer rode my horse around me, my belly would shift would deform because she was following the gait of my horse back then. Baluarte was his name. So let's talk about turf cord. Tell me, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, for me it's fascinating too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the idea to invent a new product like this came from my father, because he always loved to work on barefoot hooves, because they're way more healthy, and it's of course it's more natural.
Yes.
And he always said the hoof is just a marvel of engineering. You have to really get into the anatomy. It's so fascinating to understand all. I mean, there's so many different parts on a hoof working together, and it's just like, how could someone invent something like this? It's just it's a perfect thing. I mean, if you look at it, it's a really small surface for so much weight and power above.
Absolutely.
I think they the racehorses and the gallop, when the foot touches the ground, and the weight, the most how you call it, the when all the weight is pushing on that one foot, it's about 1.5 tons.
Wow, of pressure
on this little hoof there. So it can withstand tremendous forces.
And the makeup of the hoof is like the fingernail for us.
It's horn, actually. Yeah, it's horn. Yes, it's horn. Okay. It's just different qualities of horn. Okay. So the frog is way more soft than the wall, for example. And the structures are different and working together, and it just works because they are different. And so he always loved the barefoots. And yes, so to nail on steel shoes was always like, yeah, it's a solution to help if the hooves are too short. But he didn't feel really comfortable with this. So he started trying different products, glued on or nailed on other alternatives. On his stallion, an Anglo-Arabian stallion, he also rode endurance, how we call endurance rides with it. Right. And there was no alternative. He thought like, yeah, 100%. That's the perfect solution if a barefoot gets too short. So he thought like, maybe I should invent something. If there's nothing on the market, I should try. And his father-in-law worked at that time for a tire company, Continental. So he knows many things about rubber. And that's what our product is now made of. And one evening they sat together with a good bottle of wine. And my father came up with the idea and just told him about it. Hey, I have this idea. Do you have any ideas how we could do it? Because my grandfather had also experience with managing and everything and business. Said, well, I think what you need as a material is rubber, because it's flexible and strong. Like the hoof. The hoof is also flexible and strong. It combines these two things. So another bottle of wine and another bottle of wine. They ordered a pizza that evening, and the first notes they made on the box. Yes, wow. I think 2 weeks ago I heard about that the first time. I didn't know that before, and I was like, what? Do you have that still? Oh no, really? You should have kept that. Right. So they didn't keep it, but yes, so that was the first time. And then they had to get another guy involved. So there are 3 partners now who does the molds for the rubber. And yes, so that's where the idea came up. And it took about 13 years, the whole development. The first prototypes look so different than our product now. And we tried, I don't know, 10 different mixtures of rubber and about 15 different glues or something to really get to that product now. Because we started with a 2-component glue, but the 2-component glues are way thicker than a 1-component glue, and also they get really stiff. And we had a flexible product. Of course, we needed a glue that stays flexible also, and that's the most tricky part, to find a glue that stays flexible, but is also strong enough to
hold.
Yeah, to hold that flexibility.
And this glue is natural, correct?
It's a kind of, it's made from Cyberbond. I think HB Faller, they bought Cyberbond. And it's like the glue they use now in medicine, like the scar here. It's not stitched, but it's glued.
Yes.
So it won't affect
bandage,
the horn at all. It actually has a kind of antibacterial effect also. So yes,
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And rubber is impact absorbing, right? So
yeah, it's really, you can do really crazy different stuff with rubber. So if you have there's a kind of like normal mixture of rubber, and if you have a ball of that and it's the same weight and the same hardness as our mixture, it will bounce off. And what our mixture does is it just bounces off a little. So it depends on the temperature during the manufacturing and stuff like that, whatever effects you want to achieve.
Right.
So the mixture and material we got now is really shock absorbing. That was an important part that brought my mother in. She's a veterinarian. She said, be careful that it doesn't bounce off too much because it won't be good for the joints.
Right.
Yes.
And not just the joints, but the horses that are competitive, the show horses that have a gait, for example, like our Paso horses, that bounce off is going to throw off the rhythm of the frequency that they need to do when they perform. Even though it's a natural gait for them, then when they're in competition, it's going to throw off that sequence, and then they won't win.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the rule changes that are coming up for us, where horseshoes will or will not be required for competition. And although using turf cord would probably not work because we have a sound component for our shows, where they go over a wooden board and you could hear the taka taka.
Yeah, I didn't saw it live yet, but videos.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so you will see.
Yes.
And so the rubber won't let that sound be heard as clearly.
No, actually, yeah, it sounds more like a barefoot, even more a bit down maybe.
Right, it will be muffled.
Yeah.
And we need the clarity of the sound because it's so fast. So what I'm thinking is, as far as our breed is concerned, these are shoes that can be worn in between shows. So for training, to protect the hooves, to protect the joints, the hocks and all that we have so much trouble with, and to protect from laminitis or a tendency towards laminitis. This is a cushion, right? So again, it's Crocs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Crocs for horses. So I became fascinated with it because I like natural things for my horses, and I was talking to you about wanting to remove my horse's shoes, but I'm very worried about the sanity of the wall.
Yes.
And because I keep them out in pasture most of the time, that transition between the holes of the nails and all that we were just talking about could cause the chipping of the walls.
Yes.
So tell me what you were explaining about that. How does turf cord help for that transition?
Well, it just protects the hoof during the transition. But the hoof can already move like the barefoot hoof because the turf cord stays flexible, so all the hoof mechanism stays intact. So they've got the kind of feeling of barefoot, but still protected. So in transition from nailed-on shoes to barefoot, they won't last maybe as long as on a normal healthy hoof because these parts are not that, do you say stable? Not that strong,
sturdy,
not that strong. Yes, sturdy.
Okay.
Yes, and of course, if you glue on a surface that's not really sturdy, it can't last as long as it would on a normal hoof. So I would say here, I would recommend to renew the turf cords every 3 weeks, for example. But then after at least 3 months, the hole should have grown out completely, and then you can go barefoot.
And from that point on, the turf cord should last about 6 weeks, correct?
Oh, it can last long. It depends on the growth of the hoof.
Right.
And also, yeah, not only the speed, but also the way they groove. If you have a diagonal hoof, of course, the wall starts to flaying. It just depends really on the hoof. So in German winter, and usually we leave the turf courts on for let's say between 7 and 9 weeks, because they really don't grow too much in that time. It's cold and windy and you don't see the sun for weeks. So yes, it depends really on the conditions where the horses are kept in, how fast the feet are growing.
That's true, yeah. Okay, so tell me the process. I saw you taking measurements yesterday. There's different shapes and sizes, and so show us the different sizes, the different shapes.
So we got different sizes for, let's say, Shetland ponies till warm bloods. Small draft horses, maybe, but so this is one of our pony sizes. Yes, it's really cute. And here you can see really well that the tread from the pony size to the, that's a kind of, that's really a medium size. The tread really depends on the size, so it gets thinner the smaller. Yes. So, and for the bigger sizes we have a round shape and an elongated shape. For usually and here you can see it's the round shape is always with an F, and the elongated shape with an R for rear and front, because usually the front feet are round and the hind feet are more like elongated. But you can, of course, we do it often actually, to put this shape on a front hoof. That doesn't matter,
whatever
really.
fits.
Yes.
Whatever fits. And I want to highlight this. Not every single part of it is flexible. It's movable.
It's really 100% natural rubber. There's no reinforcement in there.
And you know what this made me think of? When you go to a park, some those basketball courts, sometimes they have that little, or under a playground for kids.
Yes.
And what was the other thing? Those mats that they've made, like for the kitchen or for work areas where you're standing for a long time. And this is just a restful feel, right? So for the horse, my horses are out at pasture, so they have soft ground, but this adds support, right? So
yes.
Like
yeah, especially, of course. It's like that's what Pat calls it all the time. It's a Nike for us. It's like a tennis shoe. Yes, I always say it's a barefoot shoe, because it really, it's not thick on the wall, so it looks like really natural if you put it on. When they let them walk through the mud one time, and you will have to really look if they've got turf coat on or if they're barefoot, because you can't see it really. And also from underneath. After the bonding, we cut this one out here, and then it looks really natural. So the only part that actually stays on is this outside part? Yeah, also this part here underneath, like this part, but just not that high. We just cut it out, so it looks like, then it looks like really like the sole actually. I see what you mean, just that it's a little bit higher than this level. It is, because the glue sets under pressure. So what we do is we pull it on like a sock or a condom. We pull it on, then with our special stretch foil we wrap it around to keep it in the right position, in the shape of the hoof. If the hoof is more like this, it will look like this. You'll have to put it on like this, wrap it with a foil, then let the hoof down and pick up the other leg. And at that time, then the glue starts to set in about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. So you can continue your work on the other leg. Yes. So it molds. Okay, I see what you're doing. Then it's like when you get a retainer made, that they put that little glue kind of a thing, like a clay or something. So it takes the exact shape of every little that's a good example. So it will perfectly fit that hoof. Yeah, it should, because it's a one component thin layer glue. So we only need a thin layer, and so it has to fit in really the shape of the hoof, that there's no parts where there's just no contact between the turf cord and the hoof, because then there, of course, it can move and then it can get loose in that part. And not just that, but we could get bacteria in there or fungus growth. It can, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah, but so that way it glues completely. It's sealed. Yeah, well, they get after a certain time, because the wall grows faster than the sole horn, usually.
Okay.
From underneath, there will be a bit moisture, but it doesn't matter really that much because the glue has this antiseptic effect. So that till now we never had a problem like that. And if you have a really deep white line from white line disease or something, we really clean it, all the rotten spots always. Before we glue.
I just saw you doing that.
And then we put some stuff in it sometimes. If it's really deep, we put some stuff in it.
Yes.
Just to make sure that it grows out.
The texture, kind of like a toothpaste.
That one we use as it's actually beeswax with some essential oils, manuka honey. It smells really good. Yeah, it's really natural. It's made in Bavaria. Yes.
Very interesting. I love that it's all natural. Okay, so you have been here right now since January. It's the first time this product was in the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay.
First time.
So you've been working on the horses here at Perfiles Farm, and you're training people to do this?
I trained 2 of his students till now.
Okay.
And just because I came here January, February, and now for only 1 week. So we are now just figuring out where to go and making contact with people like you, for example.
Absolutely.
And just to get an idea of the market here and the people, so we can see how we can continue. So
perfect. And
but that's the goal, of course.
Yes.
To train people how to do it, and maybe to also produce them in the US.
Do you know of any disadvantages for horses to be barefoot?
Well, it's that's a good question.
It's a sticky subject.
No, as long as you've got a healthy horse with no issues, barefoot is the perfect thing. I mean, as long as it always depends on how they're working. If they can walk great, then barefoot is the perfect thing for them. If they got some issues, you maybe have to put something on to help them. If their hooves are too short, of course, that's one of the most unhealthy things you can do. Just because you're convinced that barefoot is the perfect thing, and to get the hooves too short and still train them and do nothing to protect it, it affects their body, their muscles, and everything. So you could say, yeah, it is the perfect thing, the most healthy thing, if it works. If the hooves are in a good condition, if the ground is good where you're walking on, and if they don't have any problems with their joints or and that they're at a correct length. Yes. Yeah, of course. Not sure. Over-trimmed. That's not over-trimmed, but also not too long, because
then it starts to spread.
Yeah, and also for the tendons. If you imagine it's longer, and the break over, they have to really push here. It's really just not good for the tendons.
There you go. I hadn't thought of that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, for bringing this product to the U.S. Anything that is good for horses is wonderful. And thank you to your father and your grandfather.
Yes.
And all these people that helped to put it together from day one on the pizza box.
Yes.
That's a really great story. And I hope to see you very soon.
I hope so too. It was a pleasure.
You too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.